The cold wind of Wyoming swept across the desolate landscape in early April, shaking the bare branches like dry hands reaching toward the sky. The pale afternoon light cast a gray veil over the barren fields, adding to the wilderness and quiet of the land. Caleb Mitchell, a 54-year-old farmer, stood still on his porch, eyes gazing distantly at the cloud-laden horizon. Painful memories surged back, overwhelming his mind like waves. 6 years had passed since that spring disaster. The devastating flood that swept away everything in its path, including his beloved 13-year-old daughter. Emily, the girl, with bright blue eyes and a radiant smile, vanished from Caleb's life in an instant. The pain was like a wound that never healed, only dulled by time with a thick, cold scar. Caleb's face, with hair turning gray and deep wrinkles etched over the years, was a testament to the hardships he had endured. The creases on his forehead and around his eyes spoke not only of age but of internal battles, loss, and the persistent effort to survive. His eyes, though dimmed with age, still held a spark of resilience, a determination to keep going, even though the loss had turned his heart to stone. Caleb took a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill his lungs, reminding him that spring had arrived. Another spring without Emily, but a season he had to live through. Continue to care for the farm that they had once tended together, and find reasons to exist amid the harshness of nature and memory. The farm where Caleb was born and raised, inherited from his grandfather, was not just land to maintain but a spiritual refuge amid the chaos. This place bore witness to countless family memories. Those summer mornings filled with Emily's laughter as she played under the golden sun. The fields of wheat swaying in the wind were once her favorite playground, where father and daughter worked together and shared simple, happy stories. Every little path around the farm, every corner of the barn, and the old oak tree carried Emily's presence, reminding Caleb of the beautiful times gone by. Each time he picked up a spade or repaired a fence, memories rushed back, turning routine tasks into bittersweet moments. The sound of her laughter seemed to echo faintly, resonating in his mind, making the sense of loss vivid and haunting. The farm was where Caleb found a semblance of peace when he recalled the days he and Emily had worked hard together. But it was also where the longing for her felt as endless as an underground stream. It was a strange blend of comfort and pain, a cycle of emotions that Caleb had learned to live with, so that each passing day was another step in preserving the family legacy and the indelible memories. On a cold afternoon, as the sun began to set and cast long shadows across the landscape, Caleb walked past the old fence to inspect the weathered sections. The sound of the wind combined with the silence of the wild pasture, creating an atmosphere heavy with tension. Suddenly, an unusual sound broke the stillness, a frantic, weak whinny full of worry echoed from afar. Caleb furrowed his brow, paused to listen, and felt his heart pounding in his chest. Rusty, his loyal horse that had stood by him through countless hardships, also became alert, ears pricked and hooves tapping the ground lightly as if urging him on. Caleb patted Rusty's mane and, together, they cautiously moved toward the marshy area, where the thawing spring ice had turned the ground into treacherous traps. Before him was a sight that made his breath catch, a young mare, dark-coated and covered in mud, struggling desperately to free herself from a deep, sticky mire. Each effort to escape only caused her to sink further, and her weakened whinny echoed with fear and helplessness. A painful flash of memory overwhelmed Caleb, Emily's terrified eyes, her small hand reaching out as he failed to grasp it during the flood. His heart tightened with the familiar pang, but he forced the thought aside. Not now, he told himself, focusing all his attention on the present crisis. Determination shone in his weary eyes as he approached the young mare, speaking in a deep, Soothing voice to calm her. Easy now, little one. We're going to get you out of this, he said. While Rusty stood steadfast nearby. Watchful but unafraid. Caleb extended his hand carefully. Every move deliberate as he prepared for the rescue. Silently praying for success to redeem a part of what he had lost 6 years ago. With urgency, Caleb pulled out his cell phone from his coat pocket. Fingers trembling as he dialed the number of Dr. Sarah Benton, the local veterinarian known for her expertise in handling emergency situations involving both wild and domesticated animals. Her composed and professional voice answered after a few rings. Sarah. I need you at the northern boundary of the farm. Near the wild pasture. There's a young mare trapped in the thawing mud. She's in serious danger. Caleb said. His voice a mixture of urgency and resolve. Understood. Caleb. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Stay calm and do what you can to keep her steady until I arrive. Sarah responded without hesitation. After ending the call, Caleb swiftly returned to Rusty and the saddlebag holding emergency supplies. He pulled out a sturdy rope, a warm blanket, and a flashlight, preparing for whatever was needed. The mare continued to thrash, her breath heavy, body shivering. Caleb approached cautiously, eyes lit with fierce determination. Easy, little one. You're not going to face this alone, he murmured, his voice soft to reassure the animal. Every second dragged on as Caleb waited for Sarah's arrival. The sounds around him, the rustle of the wind, the bite of the cold air, and the dimming light of the setting sun, emphasized the critical nature of the moment. But this time, he resolved that he would not let the situation slip beyond his control. Before long, the headlights of Dr. Sarah Benton's truck pierced the twilight from afar. Approaching the scene quickly but carefully, she stepped out, equipped with rescue gear, her sharp eyes assessing the situation in an instant. Almost simultaneously, a few neighbors who had heard the news and remembered the search for Emily years ago arrived. Shovels and ropes in hand, ready to help without needing to be asked. Caleb. We need to stabilize the edges of the mud pit before we try to pull the horse out, Sarah said, her voice firm but reassuring. The neighbors nodded in agreement and immediately set to work. They quickly installed makeshift wooden and plank structures to prevent the mud from further caving in and to create a stable foothold for both humans and the horse. Caleb took the rope and carefully wrapped it around the young mare's body, making sure to be as gentle as possible. Sarah directed everyone step by step, ensuring their coordinated efforts wouldn't harm the animal or make it panic. In the dim light of the setting sun, the sounds of their urgent work mixed with words of encouragement and instructions. After a while, with everyone's joint effort, they began to pull the horse up. Inch by inch. The creature struggled slightly but seemed to sense the safety in Caleb's determined touch and the collective support of those around. After a strenuous effort, the young mare was finally freed from the mire. Exhausted but alive. Relieved sighs and murmurs of joy filled the air. Caleb placed a hand on the horse's neck, his eyes reflecting a quiet emotion. He looked around and saw familiar faces, those who had once stood by him during the search for Emily. Once again, the unity and kindness of the community shone brightly in the desolate landscape of Wyoming. A ray of hope amid painful memories. The young mare, with her sleek black coat and sparkling dark eyes, trembled but no longer looked afraid. Caleb bent down and gently stroked her mane, feeling the warmth and the rapid heartbeat of the small creature that had just escaped a deadly trap. He gazed into her wide eyes, and a strange calm enveloped them both. It was as if the mare, whom Caleb had just decided to name Raven, understood the kindness and protection offered by the man before her. Her eyes reflected trust. Caleb whispered words of comfort in his deep, Reassuring voice, "You're safe now. Little one. Everything's going to be fine." In that moment, the old pain seemed to resurface, the memory of Emily and the helplessness he had felt 6 years ago. But this time, he was not overwhelmed by it. Instead, the unexpected bond with Raven helped him move past it. It felt like the sign of a new beginning. A small miracle in the harsh reality of life. Raven pressed her head against Caleb's hand. Her eyes soft and expressive, as if acknowledging his efforts to save her. The people around them, from Sarah to the neighbors, watched the scene with quiet emotion. They knew this rescue was not just about saving a young wild horse, but also about healing a man who had gone too long without hope in a life full of loss. Raven nuzzled Caleb's hand, her eyes gentle, as if conveying her understanding of his efforts to save her life. The onlookers, from Sarah to the gathered neighbors, watched the scene unfold with silent emotion. They knew this rescue was not merely a matter of saving a wild horse, but an act of healing for a man who had long lived without hope, surrounded by the weight of his loss. As the dark clouds slowly rolled in, the air grew colder, adding an edge of tension to the landscape. The wind howled more fiercely, tugging at the branches of the barren trees as if urging time to move faster. The crowd stood in silence, hands ready to assist at any moment, eyes fixed on the unfolding rescue. Caleb's hands trembled from both exertion and emotion as he leaned close to Raven and whispered, his voice breaking under the weight of suppressed grief, "You're not alone. I promise. I won't abandon you. No matter what." It was a pledge not just for the struggling animal but a vow to himself. A determination to never feel the helplessness he had endured 6 years before. With one final surge, Raven's thin legs pushed up from the sticky mud. The gathered hands pulled on the rope. And in a heartbeat, the mare was free, her hooves finding solid ground. Mud splattered across Caleb and the others. But no one cared. A collective cheer mixed with relieved sighs rose into the crisp air. Raven stood panting, her wide eyes now glowing with newfound trust. She turned her head to look at Caleb, as if recognizing him as the one who had guided her through the terror and cold of the mire. Caleb reached out and stroked her neck, a weary but genuine smile breaking across his weathered face. In that moment, life and determination had triumphed, dispelling the shadow of painful memories and replacing it with a fragile yet bright hope in the somber Wyoming twilight. Raven panted, her legs still trembling from exhaustion. For a moment, everyone thought she might bolt back into the wild pastures. But instead, the unexpected happened. Raven stepped forward, her large eyes gazing at Caleb with an extraordinary gentleness. The people surrounding them held their breath, unwilling to disrupt the profound silence. Caleb stood frozen, unable to look away. The mare bowed her head and rested her warm muzzle against his chest, her breath seeping through the cold fabric of his coat. The gesture was achingly tender, a silent expression of gratitude. A bond formed between a man and a creature who had faced death together. Caleb's heart tightened as an overwhelming, uncontrollable wave of emotion surged through him, breaking down the defenses he had painstakingly built over 6 long years. His shoulders shook as tears spilled from his tired eyes. For the first time since Emily's passing, Caleb cried, tears of grief, loss, and a profound sense of relief at rediscovering life and hope. The people around stood in silence, understanding that this was Caleb's moment, a rare and precious instant when the strongest man among them finally allowed himself to be vulnerable. Raven stood still, her breath merging with Caleb's sobs as if sharing the burden he had carried for so long. In the cold sunset, under the heavy dark clouds, the image became a symbol of healing and hope, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could be soothed by the smallest, yet most meaningful, gesture. From the day Raven was rescued from the mud and unexpectedly showed a tender gesture toward Caleb, everything at the farm seemed to change. The wild horse began returning more frequently, appearing in the mornings and at dusk, as if drawn to Caleb's presence and the sense of safety the farm provided. The first encounters were still a bit tentative. But before long, Caleb realized that Raven's visits were not mere coincidence, they marked the beginning of an unspoken bond. A new hope emerging in his life. Caleb decided to rename Raven as Hope, as an affirmation and a reminder to himself of the life and courage the horse had brought him. That name, filled with meaning, was not just for the horse but also symbolized Caleb's own rebirth. From that point on, he no longer woke up each day to silent pain and emptiness. In the early mornings, when the sun cast its light on the dry grass and the wind swept past the old fences, Caleb would often see Hope standing from afar, her eyes sparkling in the golden light, like a friend who had been waiting for him all along. Hope's frequent presence gradually softened Caleb's heart, drawing him out of the shell of isolation he had built around himself. He began to find small joys in caring for Hope, from preparing hay to brushing her mane and checking her health. Each time Hope rested her head on his shoulder, a gentle touch of trust, Caleb felt that he was truly living again, not just existing. The people in the community, those who had shared in his sorrow, also noticed the change. They began to see Caleb smile more often, joining gatherings and conversations he once avoided. Hope was not just a horse that had been saved, she became a symbol of hope and friendship, helping Caleb rediscover faith in life and reconnect with those around him. The farm was no longer just a place filled with painful memories of Emily, it had become a new home, where Caleb could move forward with a heart that had begun to heal. In the deep eyes of Hope, he saw not only gratitude but a reminder that even in the greatest loss, hope could be found and nurtured. Hope quickly became a living symbol of connection at Caleb's farm. She was not only a source of comfort for him but also showed a caring and friendly nature toward other animals, from the little lambs to the old hunting dog at the farm. Whenever someone came to visit, Hope would often step out from the pasture, her kind dark eyes and lowered head greeting them. Her presence was a reminder that even amid the harshness of nature, trust and connection could endure and thrive. The story of saving Hope spread throughout the community and inspired many. Caleb realized that this story was not just his own but carried a message of resilience and hope during the darkest times. He began to open his farm to local schoolchildren, sharing with them the journey he and Hope had taken. In the eyes of the children, the sleek black horse was no longer just an animal but a living testament to a moving story of courage, salvation, and friendship. Caleb recounted what had happened with genuine and heartfelt emotion. When he described the moment Hope rested her muzzle on his chest, he paused, his gaze distant but no longer shadowed with darkness. The students listened intently, many with bright eyes, absorbing the profound lesson of trust and the power of kindness. Hope stood nearby, as if she understood that her story was being told, nuzzling Caleb's hand as a reminder that even after the greatest losses, life could find comfort and new meaning. From that point on, Caleb's farm became not only a place of work but a space for connection, sharing, and healing. Hope, with her wild instincts and restored trust, stood as a living symbol that the boundary between the wild and the tame could be bridged with enough love and understanding. Caleb, who had found himself again, now inspired the community with the meaning of resilience and the rebirth of hope through the most difficult trials. The story of Caleb and Hope, from a challenging rescue to the heartfelt bond between man and nature, quickly spread through the community and became a local legend. Everyone who heard the story felt the power of hope and resilience, turning it into a source of strong inspiration. Gradually, Caleb's farm became more than just a place of production, it transformed into a rehabilitation center for injured wildlife. a place where animals in need could find care and healing. People from the area, from farmers to families from distant towns, started bringing injured wild animals for Caleb to tend to. From orphan fawns to birds with broken wings. With the support of Dr. Sarah Benton and volunteers, Caleb's farm grew into a vibrant center of recovery. A sanctuary where people and animals alike could find solace and a chance to start anew. Hope, with her majestic appearance and gentle nature, became a symbol of loyalty and healing. Whenever Caleb needed encouragement, Hope would appear like a silent companion. On tiring days or when memories of pain surfaced, Hope would come to him. Her deep, warm eyes a reminder that he was no longer alone. The community not only recognized Caleb's farm as a center for animal care but also as a place that brought people together through stories of courage and faith. Workshops, educational programs about animals, and experience sharing sessions were held there, drawing participation from both adults and children. Hope, the living symbol of the farm, often appeared during these gatherings, serving as a powerful testament to the strength of recovery. Caleb, once a man burdened with unspeakable loss, had now found a new purpose. He not only healed injured creatures but also helped soothe pain and bring joy to the surrounding community. His and Hope's story was more than a tale of rescue, it was proof that in the darkest of nights, light could still be found, the light of rebirth and hope, shining through love and resilience. Years passed, and Caleb's farm became a symbol of endurance and compassion. Not just within the community but to those who traveled from afar to learn and be inspired by this remarkable story. Visitors could see Hope, now aged, with her black coat gradually turning silver but still exuding strength and majesty. Her eyes still shone, holding stories of not only her journey but of all those who had set foot on the farm. Caleb, with his white hair and face marked by the years, continued to work on his land, his strong hands moving tirelessly with an unyielding spirit. He still cared for every corner of the farm and talked to Hope as if it were an essential part of his daily life. Both Caleb and Hope had changed, weathered by time, but in that, they had only become more steadfast, radiating a powerful vitality forged through hardship. Every visitor who came heard the inspiring story of Caleb and Hope, a tale of a wild horse and a farmer who had lost everything but together found renewal. The memories of pain and loss were no longer a dull ache but had transformed into a legacy of resilience, reminding all that even in the deepest suffering, hope could emerge and transform life in unimaginable ways. This story was passed down through generations, and the image of Caleb and Hope standing side by side in the evening sun became a symbol of loyalty, trust, and the profound meaning that a loving heart could offer. Young people who heard the story learned not only about empathy and care but also understood that even in the darkest moments, a new beginning could be waiting. And Caleb's farm, with Hope standing tall despite her age, was the clearest testament to healing from what once seemed lost forever. Caleb stood in the field, where the dry grass swayed in the light afternoon breeze. His eyes followed Hope, now aged but still regal, as she walked slowly in the golden light. In that silent moment, Caleb realized something profound. Saving Hope all those years ago was not just about soothing past pain or making up for what he had lost with Emily. It was a valuable lesson about the possibility of starting anew, even when everything seemed buried in despair. Rescuing Hope was not merely an act, it had become a symbol of something greater. Caleb understood that survival and friendship did not happen by chance. They were the result of opening one's heart, not only to those around but to oneself as well. He had learned that when we face our pain, not avoiding it but turning it into motivation to keep going, life responds with small but powerful miracles. The bond between Caleb and Hope had become a living testament to the strength and healing power of the heart. It proved that even in moments when we think we cannot go on, comfort and new meaning can be found if we have the courage to open ourselves up. Visitors to the farm, Upon hearing Caleb's story, left with quiet reverence and a deep lesson that no matter how challenging life becomes, hope can rise from the ruins and lead us to a new path filled with meaningful connections and an unbreakable strength.